Welcome back, everybody, to the SOS Sports Show here. I'm your host, Noah. Joined by me is Randall and Matt. How we doing today, fellas?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Solid. Getting ready to chop up some more spicy sports talk with you guys as usual. It's been a while since I talked to Randall for a bit, man, so it's good to be in the same room talking sports once again. But with that being said, those of you tuning in, I'm your host once again, Noah. Stacey isn't with us here today, but we're going to still go on with the show. With that being said, guys, we're going to start with the first topic going forward with the Memphis Grizzlies firing Taylor Jenkins. A really bad stretch for the Grizzlies going. I actually saw my first basketball game not too long ago when they played the Clippers in LA, and they lost by like 20-something. But, of course, John Morant didn't play the one day I didn't go. But anyway, Grizzlies fire Taylor Jenkins. What does this mean going forward for the Memphis Grizzlies? Will this really affect their playoff run they're trying to reach that they've been so destined to be talking about for their squad? Randall, I'm going to start with you on this one. What does this mean for the Memphis Grizzlies going forward?
I mean, to me, like, it's just a signal. I mean, to fire a coach like with basically 10 games left in the season, I mean, that's pretty much a sign that they're pretty much pulling the plug on like their hopes as far as like this year is concerned. And to me, this is a message from the organization up the top that I think to John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane, like the three core guys on the team. Like, I think it's really a message from those guys upstairs that I think that patience is running thin within the organization when it comes to this group as far as, you know, are they going to be able to put it all together with this group, and has this group reached their ceiling as a team? Like I think if these guys don't really get their act together as far as like reaching their potential, like within the next season, because next season is really what they're going to focus on. You know, if these guys don't really, you know, reach their potential as far as like getting back to what they were as a 2 seed before, you know, John Morant, you know, got into his trouble with the league. I think management is going to have some tough decisions to make going forward as far as like which one of these guys are they going to have to be able to move and be able to get value from. And, you know, and I think it begs the question, like, is John Morant, like, does he have the maturity level to be like to be able to lead a team deep into the postseason? And that pretty much remains to be seen.
Definitely, man. And I definitely heard some rumors about Jenkins losing the locker room at some point with some of the players. I know John Morant was hurt for some part of that season, that little stretch, and then right after he left, Jaw's back up and running. So some question marks to really ask yourself there. But Matt, what are your thoughts on the Grizzlies situation right here with their coaching situation?
So I actually just recently did an article on this, and I kind of echo what Tim McMahon of ESPN said. And I think this has a lot to do with, I think the organization was kind of unhappy with how Jenkins was optimizing John Morant within his scheme. You know, it felt like, you know, this year, if you've been paying attention, Morant's having kind of a down year across multiple statistical categories. And at times, you know, he's been kind of lost in the offense, kind of been an afterthought at times, which is not something we would say about John Morant, you know, 3-4 years ago, you know, when we thought he would be one of the faces of the league here pretty soon. So I think a lot of this also kind of is a signal from the organization that they want to reshift their focus to John Morant and make him the building block of the future. I do think that there is something to be said about this core going forward, about how they want to see some results sooner rather than later. But I also feel like this was a kind of a drastic move, because I don't agree with letting go of your head coach with only 9 or 8 regular season games left before the playoffs. But I think this was also to kind of show John Morant is our number one priority going forward, no matter how good of a coach you are. So I think it has a little bit to do with reshifting the focus and kind of, bringing back the focus back to building around John Morant for the future.
Definitely a surprising move for me, for them firing Taylor Jenkins this late in the season. I really thought he did a good job with the franchise overall. I think he has the most franchise wins. I think Randall mentioned that he had the most wins in the franchise as a coach. But it's very interesting also to see if he's going to be on another team now going into the playoffs, Taylor Jenkins. I feel like he's going to be one of the top coaching candidates available now. If you guys were to choose any team that you think might be interested, or teams multiple teams. Which would you guys think that he'd be interested in going to, Randall?
Well, it pretty much depends on like which teams like have or are gonna have coaching vacancies like this upcoming off season. Maybe like a team like Phoenix, they're probably gonna replace Coach Budenholzer down there. Maybe that could be a good team that they can go to. And I think we'll see what happens when they move Kevin Durant. See if they can get any young value for Kevin Durant, whether it's picks or pieces. And just see if he can try to rebuild, kind of go with like a rebuilding type of core, and see if he can build with some younger, see if he can develop with some young players down there. That's like, I know that's one like potential head coaching vacancy that I think is going to be available this offseason, the Phoenix Suns. But yeah, I think that could be a potential place for him to go to.
Okay, Phoenix Suns potential landing spot for Taylor Jenkins. Matt, what about you? You got any potential landing spots right now?
Yeah, I agree. I think right now it's a little hard to tell because we'll have to see, which teams might fire their coach after the season is said and done. But one team I do have in mind is potentially the Sacramento Kings. I mean, they're in the they're fighting for a play-in spot right now, but they still got some talent on that roster that could entice Jenkins. He would have the chance to coach Sabonis, and if they decide to, keep Zach LaVine and whatnot, that could be, he's got a chance to still, be a playoff caliber head coach, depending on how well that team performs.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely hard to tell right now as far as what teams are needing in coaching assistance. And I think that Taylor Jenkins provides a quality coach, especially in a team that is talented on paper. So I'm definitely looking forward to see where that ends up and how that's going to affect the Grizzlies in the long run. That definitely is going to be a different team. I feel like it's going to be a much significantly different team with different coaching going in next season, let alone the rest of the year. So definitely looking forward to see how that turns out. Grizzly fans, I'm sure that's devastating news to y'all. I'm so sorry.
I mean, the thing is, like, this is basically par for the course for the Grizzlies. Because, I mean, if you think about, like, remember, like, when the Grizzlies went to the conference finals with Lionel Hollins, like, they didn't bring him back after they went the furthest they ever went in their franchise history. They've had a pattern of getting rid of coaches after 2 and 3 years. They got rid of Dave Yeager, I believe, after 3 years. David Fisdale only lasted 2 years. JB Bickerstaff only lasted 2 years. So, I mean, we see a pattern within that organization. Now, Taylor Jenkins did last, a long time, a longer time than those guys with 6 years. But, this is an organization that has a history with not being the most patient when it comes to head coaches. And, it does beg the question is like, how can we really trust like this team's track record when it comes to bringing in the new coach? Like, are they just is this going to be a guy that they're going to bring in for the long haul, or this is going to be another guy that they bring in for 2 years and then you end up having to have the same conversation over again?
Yeah, I didn't know they were that impatient with the coaches. So yeah, that's a good point you brought up, Randall. Yeah, that's definitely that makes me look at it differently now. So all right, that makes more sense. But moving on to the next topic, March Madness fans, we got you on this one. So many of you all know the talk of the town of the tournament, Cooper Flagg, Duke, and they got their big matchup, by the way, against Houston in the Final Four. Cooper Flagg, I mean, averaging almost 20 points a game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, he's only doing it at 18 years old. He's going to turn 19 in December, which I found out his birthday is a day before mine, which is kind of crazy. But going forward, what do you guys think is a bottom 5 NBA team that you think would need someone like him the most? Randall, I'm going to start with you on this one.
All right, so when I was looking before the show, so the bottom 5 teams is Utah, the Wizards, the Pelicans, the Sixers, and
Hornets?
And the Hornets, yes.
Okay.
So out of those 5 teams, I would say that the Washington Wizards, I believe, need some. I think they need this pick the most. I mean, we're talking about a team that ever since I would say ever since 2017, that was the last run they had with John Wall and Bradley Beal. But ever since then, this organization has been in constant dysfunction. We're talking about a team that has not won 50 games, I believe. I think in their entire existence, they haven't won 50 games.
Wow.
Yeah, like, so, I mean, yeah, so, like, even in their championship season back in, I think, 78, like, I think that the most they won was 49 games that year. So, we're talking about a team that's been in constant organization has been in constant disarray. So, I mean, I think a number one pick like Cooper Flagg, I think, it gives some semblance of hope to a team that's just been consistently been a bottom feeder for years and years.
Yeah, definitely a valid take right there. And given the situation right now, that almost half of their roster is hurt. So I get that, man. So Wizards for Randall. Matt, what about you?
So I'll switch it up a bit here, and I'll go with the Utah Jazz. When you look at the Jazz as of right now, this is a roster you look at, and there's just not, a lot of juice on that roster. And, if you added someone like Cooper Flagg, it would bring some fanfare back to town, and it would just give you that clear-cut, building block for the future, that they've been lacking ever since Donovan Mitchell came to town. So, and with the Jazz, it's like they're an organization, that always eventually rebuilds correctly, and then they do end up becoming a very winning team, but they just can never seem to make that next step. They'll either fall short in the conference finals, or if you're going back to the 90s, run into Michael Jordan. So if I was a fan, I'd be very frustrated from that standpoint. It's kind of the opposite of the Washington Wizards. But I feel like if you were to add someone like Cooper Flagg, that would give you like some semblance of hope that eventually you would, here in the next, say decade, eventually be able to make that next step and finally capture that first title in your franchise's history. So, I mean, and just for the star power alone, I feel like Utah is kind of in desperate need of someone like Cooper Flagg.
Very fair, valid take as well. I forget that the Jazz don't have a title. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
I mean, the thing is, like in recent years, like this is really the first time in a long time they've really been like at the bottom of the league because the thing is because even the year that they lost Gordon Hayward in free agency when he went to the Celtics, and then that same offseason, that was when they drafted Donovan Mitchell, and they literally did not skip a beat. Like they went to the second round with Gordon Hayward the year before, they draft Donovan Mitchell, and they go to the second round like in Donovan Mitchell's rookie season. So, they've been a team that's been consistently been a playoff team throughout the years, but they've just never, like you said, they've never really got over the hump, to win a championship. And, now they have Danny Ainge at the helm, who obviously had success, as a GM with the Celtics for many, many years. He was able to build that team. Now it's been a bit of a longer process for him in Utah, but, I think, but Cooper Flagg could definitely be that foundational piece to where, and really just to get the fan excitement back in Utah, because, we're talking about, a team that's, been notorious for having one of the, loudest crowds in the NBA. And I think I saw something like a couple weeks ago, like they were having tickets, like they were having like $5 tickets up there in Utah now. It's like they're having trouble, they're struggling just to get, folks to come out to the games. Cause I mean, they just don't really have much to watch right now. So it's like, they definitely need, to get some, like if they got Cooper Flagg, like they would definitely bring that fanfare back to Utah. That's definitely for sure.
Yeah, drive those sales up for sure. All the merch and everything. Yep. Yeah, those are both really good questions. Those are probably like the two teams that probably need him the most in the league right now. I'd probably say Washington by a slight, just because of the lack of like long-term success overall as a franchise. I think that would I feel like that'd make more of an impact for them. But that's just my 2 cents. I think he'd be a good fit, considering the roster changes that they've gone through and the luck that they've had overall in Washington. But yeah, Utah definitely could use him too, and I'm not taking away from Utah as well. And I'm sure someone like him in an atmosphere like that with those fans, that would go crazy, especially when they'd be decent. So that would be pretty crazy.
Say what we're all thinking here.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So so there's a couple other teams that are in the bottom 5, like New Orleans and Philly, and I think those two teams would be like intriguing. What if they got the number 1 pick? Let's say if the Sixers got the number 1 pick. Like, do you think, would you consider, would that be a sign that maybe they should try to move off of Embiid finally? Or, or even for the Pelicans, what do they do with Zion going forward? What do you guys think of those two scenarios?
I think in both of those scenarios, I think it'd be a great insurance policy for both if they do decide to rebuild, because with Philly, it's like they've been so hampered with injuries this year with Paul George and Joel Embiid. We still don't really know, if that experiment will work out quite yet. I don't think you can really judge this year and say if it does, then, hey, great, you got Cooper Flagg, who could be an, excellent supporting cast character to that star duo, or, if you need to make like one move, that's a great, piece, like a movable asset. And same with the Pelicans. Again, they're also very hampered by injuries this year. With the Pelicans, I think the direction is a little more unclear. But yeah, I would say, if the opportunity presents itself, you have to take him at the very least, just as kind of a quote unquote insurance policy.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very low risk, high reward situation there for both those teams. I think that situation with like the Sixers with that three-headed monster, they have like all their salary cap invested in. They could have him and boom, trade away Joel Embiid. Get something out of that if all else goes wrong. God forbid that happens. With the injuries and everything. But yeah, and then same thing with the Pelicans. I think that would help them kind of drive their direction as far as a franchise and the team going forward with a player like that. So definitely couldn't go wrong getting someone like him for either of those teams. Very, like I said before, a high reward, low risk. So yeah, that'd be interesting though. That would be really interesting. But going forward to the next topic, we're going on from basketball to baseball. So many of you have heard around the social media world that the New York Yankees are being infamous for using their torpedo bats, for increasing their power on the bats and making it easy for the Yankees to be known as the Bronx Bombers, make a long story short. So with that being said, guys, I know that they're not, deemed illegal to use in the MLB as of right now. What do you guys think of the Yankees using the torpedo bats? Do you guys see this as a future utility for other teams to be using in the future in the league? Randall, let's start with you.
Well, man, my first reaction to this is, man, the Dodgers just got everybody shook, man. It's just like, man, it's just like, these Yankees are gonna have to they're starting that trend, to be able to try to combat the Dodgers. But in all seriousness, baseball allowing this, I think it's more of along the general trends of seeing that the viewership is up in baseball, and just given that the home runs have been coming back to the game a lot more, especially with a lot of the young players with the Otanis and Aaron Judges of the world. So, the saying goes, chicks dig the long ball. So, I think, it's just one of those, things that Major League Baseball is allowing, just to be able to, increase a lot of the offense and the home runs to be able to gain viewership, and baseball seeing an increase in viewership, and their main goal is to try to get it back to what it was in the 90s. I think this is just one of those ploys to be able to do it.
Yep, offense sells in sports leagues these days, man. And I just saw something crazy stat right here. Their opening series against the Brewers, they scored a total of 36 runs in 3 games.
Insane.
Insane. So with that being said, Randall, is a good point right there. Matt, what about you? What are your thoughts on the torpedo bats?
Can my Colorado Rockies get their hands on a few of those? Because so yeah, and I could see why some people would be a little annoyed with it, but at the same time, there's not a rule forbidding it, so I can't really blame them. I would probably do the same thing if it was going to help me hit more homers if I was a player too. So I think I agree. I think going forward, we'll probably see more use of it because, it's helping the ratings in the MLB. And as like you said, offense sells. We see it in all sports. We saw the NFL become more of a passing game. We see the NBA becoming way more of a scoring league, and people are going to tune into the MLB. They're not going to want to watch great pitching unless you're like an MLB savant. They're going to want to see, the casual fans going to want to see home runs hit.
Yeah, and considering how low the average views of a baseball game has been compared to other sports and games, it kind of makes sense, So I hear you on that one, Matt. Until it's deemed illegal to use, I'd probably want to use it and get some of those for my Pirates, man. They need to score some runs too. Damn, man, rough out there, man. But yeah, man. It's definitely interesting to see. Bats like that being used and as the norm now. It's kind of funny to say see it as kind of the new norm in the league, offensively at least. So I'm just curious to see how other teams are going to adapt to that, and how coaches are going to look at it and everything going forward while it's still legal to use. Do you guys think this will last the whole season, like them being legal to use?
I think so. No, I mean they made. I mean now. I mean we'll see. We'll see if it's just like if it becomes a general trend where like some of the numbers get like into like insane numbers where just like random teams start like hauling off home runs. Like at the Yankees level, and maybe they might try to do something to curb it like later on. But I think they'll just let it. I think they're willing to just wait it out and see where it goes. And I think as long as it increases offense, and it's to like at a reasonable rate, then I think they'll be able to rock out with it.
I agree. Like I would say, analogy is it's going to be kind of like the tush push in football. It's like, yeah, certain teams might want it banned, but it's like, why? It's like the people are going to say, well, just pitch better. That's going to be.
Yeah, I know Randall loved to hear that one.
Oh, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like, people think that folks have stopped the tush push before. Like when we went up against the Tampa Bay Bucks in the playoffs last year, like we got stopped, I think, twice on the tush push. But again, like the Bucks have a team have a guy like Vita Vea up the middle. They have good linebacker play with Devontae David. They have safety in the back with Antoine Winfield. So they have that type of personnel where they can be able to put a stop to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you have to, but the thing is like football to me is like, I think that's kind of like, it's a constant chess match. And, I think, but similar in baseball, pitchers, pitchers are smart enough, like they'll find ways to like adjust and adapt to it as well. Like, I think they'll be able to figure it out. And then, pitchers are going to trust their stuff. So it's like, they're like, I think like, I don't think it'll be like something that's going to be like talked about, I don't think it's going to be like a discussion point like throughout the whole season. I think people will, adjust to it.
Fair enough. Yeah, and going forward, in general, pitchers have the advantage between them and the batter to start off with. So it's like, plus considering how nasty these pitches are, like gone, like evolved throughout the years, it's gone so much better. So like, yeah, it's ridiculous. But no, going on the tush push topic real quick. Like we've talked about this on the show before. Like I'm totally for it. Like I love the tush push. I think it's great what the Eagles are doing with that. It's totally possible to stop it too. It's just teams are it's very hard to. So like, yeah, it's one of those power moves, like that's cemented with the Eagles. I think it's dope, but I'd love to see more teams run it. Honestly, I think it kind of adds more thrill to the game, and yeah, it kind of adds more sauce to it, I guess. So I like it.
Like the crowd gets the buzz going, and like I've been like the last couple of years, like I've been covering like high school sports, and like I see like high school teams run tush push all the time. To the point where like they'll announce it. Oh, such and such scores a touchdown with the tush push. Like they'll say that over the intercom.
That's pretty cool.
Like, yeah. So exactly. So it's like it's kind of become like a new norm. So it's like until now, I know they want to try to see if like is there an increase in injury, but so far like there hasn't been any evidence that there's more injury risk on that play than any other play in football.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I think until now, and now I think what some folks in the league are arguing is that because years ago defensive players were outlawed from pushing the defender like on a block kick, for instance. Like they were prevented from like pushing on like block kicks, and like like guys can't push, like defensive players can't push like like a lineman or somebody over the pile or someone like that on the goal line. Sound like they got like that rule got banned. So I think some folks are saying that okay, maybe it's not fair for like offense to be able to do that. So I can understand it from that perspective. I think that perspective is a lot more reasonable than just saying like, oh, okay, just acting like, oh, it's like an increase in injury, because like, I guess there's not really clear evidence that says that there's an increased injury risk on that play than any other play in football.
Yeah, I hear that. And especially when they do the tush pushes on like fourth down and like, everything's on the line right there. The possession's on the line and everything. Like that makes it even more juicy, So I get that, man. Very valid. Well, with that being said, we're going to wrap things up here on the SOS Sports Show. You can follow us on Instagram at Stacey Owns Sports, all in one username. I'm your host, Noah, where you can find me at YUNG_N.U on Instagram as well. Got a new music video called Beer Girls. You should check it out, man. Matt, what about
Yeah, you can find me on X under the handle defund NBA refs. You can also check out some of my writing on the Sports Daily and Basketball Insiders.
All right, Randall.
And just check out the Palm Tree Perspective podcast that I got with Ham here on the SOS channel. Make sure you guys subscribe to SOS on YouTube as well. And appreciate you guys having me for this episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Palm Tree Perspective and 5280 with Matt right here, man. So, yep. With that being said, we're gonna wrap things up. Thank you for tuning in, guys. You guys have a great one. Well, see you soon.